The Honourable Judith Collins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, Phil Goff says that Kiwis don't ask for a lot or don't expect a lot. And actually he'd know, because under 9 years of Labor they didn't get a lot. And that's one of the things that's been turned around by this government. In a couple of weeks' time, we're going to see Budget 2010, and that's going to build on the marvellous results from 2009. Because what we inherited when we came into government was an economy that was on the skids, a country that was already in recession, a government that had previously been in office for 9 years and had built up debt, had built up expectations and left the kitty absolutely empty. And that's what they did. And they did that at a time when they should have known that the country was going to be going through tough times because of a world recession. Instead, what actually happened last year, instead of all doom and gloom, is a very straight course was run, something the Labor Party could never do, a very straight course to make sure that as many Kiwis as possible stayed in their jobs, as many people actually stayed in work so that they could in fact contribute and look after themselves. But instead what we had under Labor is more borrowing. And Mr Cunliffe, who's very noisy today, he's got an answer for everything. His answer is this: borrow, 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 and when you finish that, borrow a bit more. So it's the borrow, and it used to be tax and spend. Under Labor it would be borrow and spend. And that's Mr Cunliffe. He says that New Zealand doesn't have a debt problem. Unfortunately, we've got a debt problem caused by that party when they were in government. Because what they never did was to save, to spend wisely, to invest, and actually to help people get into their own businesses and to keep their heads above water. Instead, under that government, all they ever did was to spend, borrow some more, Mr Cunliffe, borrow some more. Mr Cunliffe would like to see us like Japan. He would like to see us so far into debt, that's what he wants. He's saying to Bill English, borrow some more, Bill, and just put it on the card. Well, we all know about that, and we're all looking forward to Mr Cunliffe's cards when they become public in another month's time. I'm really looking forward to that one, Mr Cunliffe, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you were spending the taxpayer dollars on, because I've got an awful lot to say about that. Mr Cunliffe doesn't like it when you talk about borrowing, does he, Mr Speaker? Not a lot. No, he doesn't like it. And why is that? Because he's the worst thing, he's the biggest enemy that Phil Goff's ever got. And it's not just because he wants to be the leader, but because any thought of Mr Cunliffe anywhere near Treasury would be enough to send Labor down to 18% in the polls, which is where they should be. And unfortunately, Mr Cunliffe is the finance spokesman. So about now, I think Mr Goff must be wondering what he's doing. So but in contrast to that, what we're going to be seeing in Budget 2010 is we're actually going to be seeing some policies to lift New Zealand's long-term economic performance, a performance which is going to continue to get better time and time again. But it's not going to be an easy job. One of the things we're doing is bringing more money from the back office and into the front line, and we're going to see a readjustment of spending to make sure that that happens, something that the Labor Party could never do. Their idea of helping people was to build up the bureaucracy in Wellington and to forget about the people who pay the bills. And in this, we're not going to be seeing that. What we're going to be seeing is, and Mr Cunliffe asked what we're doing. Well, in the corrections area, we're left in the most appalling mess by Phil Goff. We're doing a public-private partnership. We're leading the way. We're doing something that Labor never had the backbone to do, which is to invest in its own people, to help people get ahead and to actually bring the economy forward. They couldn't do it because their whole answer has borrow and spend. Borrow and spend from Mr Cunliffe, that's all he's got to do. But we're going to be doing that while maintaining firm control over the government's finances, and it's extremely important that we do so. It's going to be very, very difficult to just continue on as we are, but we're going to make sure that we get better productivity, which under Labor, 9 years of Labor, the best economic times the world had seen, we got 1.1 growth in productivity. That's what that Labor Party did. And that's, unfortunately, the legacy they've left to us, debt.
Point of order, Dr Camcorder.
Speaker, I'd just like to point out in that debate I could barely hear the Minister at all. It was so she was not even mic'd.
That was just a...
Mr. Speaker.
No, just before I do call the honourable member...
You just wait, mate. You just wait.
The Speaker is not going to go and fill up, I say to the Honourable David Cunliffe. And what's more, he won't interject like that when I'm on my feet. Members need to show just a bit... I don't mind... I mean, interjections give this House some life, and it's important that this place not be a boring place. But I think the point that Dr Camcorder has made is a fair point. It was extraordinarily... It was pretty unreasonable, the level of interjection that the Honourable Judith Collins was having to try and speak through there. And I just ask members to be a little more reasonable. The Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.